I'm Ankita. I'm a developer at ThoughtWorks. I have total experience of about 5 years, and I've been in ThoughtWorks for about a year now. I have worked on Elasticsearch on a couple of projects. So I will be talking about Elasticsearch for about 1 hour in this session. Okay. So our agenda for today is we'll have some introductory key concept for Elasticsearch so that it is beneficial for both of the audience, the ones who have never heard of Elasticsearch. Am I more audible now? Good. And some of the concepts we'll deep dive into so that people who are already working on Elasticsearch or have worked in past on Elasticsearch can understand the underlying engine, how it works, and also maybe apply some of the concepts later in their project. We'll also see some of the demos for the APIs, for the aggregations which it performs, and then we'll also see its differences with its competitor, which is Solar. They are both built on same library, so that's why they offer mostly same services. So it's good to see what differences do they have. And if we have time, we'll cover some questions also. Okay. So let's get started on this. How many of you have already worked on Elasticsearch or are currently working on Elasticsearch? Okay. So maybe you can explain later what I am explaining in detail. Okay. So basically, what is Elasticsearch? The first question you have. So someone wants to try who are already working on it?
It's a distributed database.
It's a distributed database. Okay. Cool. So Elasticsearch, as the name suggests, it is basically used for searching. It could be used as database also. It could be just used for searching also. So to be on a formal definition, it is a Lucene-based search engine. Lucene is basically written in Java, and it is based on distributed architecture. That means your data can be divided on different geographical nodes, and it also exposes a web API, which is basically RESTful APIs. In your day-to-day lives, you will be mostly working on the REST APIs exposed by Elasticsearch to put the data, to get the data, to search on the data, right? So by REST APIs, I mean all the RESTful methods are there in Elasticsearch and course code. So that's it, right? So you just have to call a bunch of APIs, get your data, talk to your data, and display your data. Sounds easy, right? But actually, it's very much, it is doing a mammoth of work inside the work engine. So it exposes some part of the API, but how internally it scales, how it grows, how it manages your data, that is the bigger piece. We'll deal with both of these parts, API and engines, in the coming slides. So some of the key concepts which whenever you study Elasticsearch or are going to work on Elasticsearch, you will be hearing of or you will be working on. First of all, it is based on document model. So by document model, I mean that all the data in Elasticsearch is present in the form of documents. Those documents are nothing but JSONs. They support all the JSON's data types, string, number, or array or anything, and it also supports some of the special data types for geolocation, your longitude, latitude. You can also search on those also. So there are many databases which are there on the document model. The Elasticsearch is also similar to that. Your all search APIs are also going to be all the search APIs will also be in the form of JSON only, right? It has distributed architecture. By distributed architecture, I mean you can deploy your Elasticsearch on multiple nodes. They can be on geographically different areas, on same area, on different machines, or on single machine also. And it scales very well with it scales very well. You don't have to do much to make it a distributed architecture. It inbuilt will provide you replica, inbuilt will provide you failover scenarios, and to create a cluster also you don't have to do much. We'll see. So by distributed, I basically means your indexes will be segregated in a bunch of nodes. By nodes, I mean different machines. And your cluster, and the good part of Elasticsearch is all the cluster state, whether your one node is down or up, this is all maintained by a master node. but your data nodes also have a copy of this cluster. So all the nodes know which of the nodes are in the current live state or which of the nodes are right now in the dead state. So you don't have a one point of failure which is master, right? And multiple masters can also exist in the system. Sometimes if you have suppose thousands of nodes, your single master cannot handle all the orchestration it has to do, so that you can have multiple masters. Licensing, it's an open source, you can see its code, you can contribute to its codes, and it is distributed under Apache license version 2. Beyond search, Elasticsearch is also used for some analytics. So if you've heard of ELK stack, so you have like millions of logs in your system, right? You can feed your data into Elasticsearch and then search on the basis of different metrics that it exposes, and there is a beautiful UI which Kibana provides you. So your logging is also made easier with Elasticsearch. So even if your system or your project right now doesn't need any search, logging is part of every project, and Elasticsearch plays a very key role in those things. It all comes under Elastic organization. These are some of the products of Elastic only, and like this, they have a lot of products which you can use, which can contribute to your logging in Elasticsearch. Right? Some of the organizations which are currently using Elasticsearch. So there you can see how much big of the data it can handle and how easily it can scale. Right? We'll dig deep into the distributed architecture. How, by distributed architecture, what I mean. Okay. So we'll go via top-down approach. So on top you have cluster. So whenever your API or your application is talking to Elasticsearch, it is talking to Elasticsearch cluster. Inside it, it has node. By node I mean machine. So suppose I have a Elasticsearch installed, Elasticsearch instance running on this machine. There is another laptop that is also having Elasticsearch. These both will call nodes, and these both will be part of one cluster. Then you have index. This is the term which you are going to see and use a lot when you are using Elasticsearch. Your data is actually stored into your index. It is a logical display of your data inside your node. Then you have shards. So this is the actual place where your data is stored. It's in your, so it's not a very good analogy, but still you can compare this thing to your relational database, like that index is a database and shard is tables, right? And inside your shards, you have different documents. These are the actual documents which are stored there. So your shard is storing your documents. Your shard is stored inside the index. That index can span to multiple nodes or a single node, and your multiple nodes constitute to one cluster. So this is how it is a distributed architecture. Now, you have this system, you have this system. Now suppose there is one index installed on both of these systems, and you are storing your 10,000 documents. Some of the documents are stored here, some of the documents are stored there. Now suppose this node fails. This node has, suppose 5,000 documents, the rest of the 5,000 are there. Now those 5,000 are gone, right? So you need some fail-safe scenario, right? So that scenario is provided by replicas. So your different shards can be replicated. By default, Elasticsearch will give you 5 shards. Your all index can be divided into 5 different shards. So whenever you search, right, your different shard search can be done parallelly, and when it is done parallelly, it is much faster. So suppose you have 10,000 documents and you have 10 shards, 1,000 documents. You raise a search request. It will be executed in the 1,000 documents parallelly, and you get the final results. So that's how it's very fast. Now all these shards should also have replicas, because what if one of the node fails? So that's why you need a replica. And replicas are never on the same node, because if I have a shard on this node and I have a replica on the same node, then there is no point. If this node goes, your entire data goes. And you don't have to do anything. Everything is done by Elasticsearch. It will give you sharding, it will give you replicas on itself. If your replica fails, if your shard fails, it will create new replicas for you. You don't have to do a single setting for that. You just install Elasticsearch and that's it. Feed your data. So we have different types of nodes in Elasticsearch distributed architecture. One is the master node. It performs all the cluster-wide operations like creating your index, deleting your index, and finding out which node is to given, which node is now up, which node is now down, and copying that state of up and down to different nodes. And it also takes care that what shard is now, what shard has to be now put into what node. So all your cluster-wide top-level operations are done by master node. Then we have data node. This is the node which will contain data. Your actual data, your documents will be on this shard. And then is your client node. So your client node is the one which is neither data nor master. So what does it do? So basically, suppose you have thousands of nodes. You need, and there is like 4 or 5 masters, right? You still need some of the nodes as coordinating nodes. Or suppose you are getting billions of requests per second. So you need some node so that it can coordinate between the requests and segregate the requests to different shards and then club those requests. That's why you need this node. And below here, this is the only setting you have to do to make your node this thing. There is one Elasticsearch YAML file which I'll show you. You just put this setting and this node will become your master node. You put this setting and this node will become your data node. You put this setting and this node will become your client node. Nothing else. What now Elasticsearch will take care that the setting there is now this. Now this will just act as master, not data. So no shards will be stored here. Now this node is the client node, so no data here, no master operations here. So it will also work as coordinating. You just have to change this setting. Cool. So now we'll see how Elasticsearch actually does replication in itself. Now suppose there is one node, node 1, it is coordinating node. It receives some request from master for insertion of some data. It sends that request to node 4. Now your node 4 contains the primary shard and your node 2 and node 3 contains the replica shards. Now your insertion of one document has gone to node 4. First it will save the document in the shard which is present in itself. Then it will send the request to save the similar document into the replica shards. Then the replica shards will acknowledge that I have saved those documents. And then only the acknowledgement will go to the coordinating node. And then coordinating node will send that acknowledgement to the master node. Right? Now here if you see, there is synchronous replication. If node 2 and node 3 are not giving the acknowledgement, it is not acknowledging to node 1 that I have saved the document. Right? So that means your replica nodes and your primary nodes are always in sync. Because whenever you are saving on the primary node, it is the responsibility of primary node to save those data into the replica nodes. Now this would make Elasticsearch slower, right? Because suppose you have a single primary node and you have like 10-12 replica nodes, so that you can have fail-safe scenarios. If it is going to wait for all the 10-12 nodes to save the data, it is going to get slow. Correct? Now here, what Elasticsearch does is, there is some time threshold which it gives the replica nodes to save the data. After that threshold, the primary node sends the acknowledgement back to the master that these are the list of nodes which I got acknowledgement from, which means these nodes are in sync with me. The rest of the nodes have not sent me any acknowledgement. These nodes are not in sync with me. And the master node then finds out these are your active shards which are having complete data, and these are your inactive shards, and it retires those shards. And then new replicas are created on base of it because your desired state was 10 replicas. This all thing is taken care by Elasticsearch. You don't have to do a single setting for this, neither in your daily life you are going to deal with. These are the core concepts which you have to understand, that why Elasticsearch is so beneficial for you. Right? No, it will not impact your performance because it has some threshold timing. After that timing, it doesn't care whether the rest of the nodes are replicated or not. Is this? Yes, yes. This threshold can be changed in the settings, and also you can say, so this is the synchronous replication, right? Suppose you don't want the synchronous, you can also change this replication to asynchronous. Like I will just send the request and I don't need the response back. As soon as it is saved on me, I'll send the response back. This also setting can be changed. By default, if you have a single node cluster and you have about 1 million of data, it has 5 shards and 5 replica nodes. That means a single replica for a single primary nodes. Depending upon your use case, how much data you are going to get, how much request you are going to get per second, this can vary. And you can set all these settings on your own. Right? This is the coordinator. Yes. So master node has sent the data to the client node. Master node knows all the information to the client node. Yes. These are data nodes. So the ones in which you see these colored and white boxes, these are having the data. So these are data nodes. The one which doesn't have any box, this is the client node because it doesn't have any data. Neither it's the master. Right? Now there is one more key thing here. Now suppose while adding your document, you receive one read request, right? Now your data is saved on your node 4, but your node 3 has received the read request. It will return the old results with the latest, because it doesn't have the latest edition. There you and suppose in the next read request, it goes to node 4, it will return the new data. So your data is now not in sync. The results are now not in sync. Right? This can happen. There is no place where you can avoid this thing. That's why Elasticsearch is called eventual consistent. So what is happening in eventual consistency? That your one request can result into a different data and your other request can result into different data for some eventual time. But eventually they will come into consensus and later on will be starting returning the correct data. Right? Now suppose this node 3 fails, right? The read request goes here and the old result is returned, but the node 3 replication has failed. Now the correct data is there on node 4 and on node 2, but the node 3 has still an incorrect data, right? Now it's the responsibility of node 4 to update the master that this replica has failed and now no read request has to be gone to node 3 which comes from my shard, right? So now the requests will only go to 2 or 4 and eventually they will become consistent. Node 3, this shard will be removed from here and a new node and a new shard will be given to some other node and the replicas are made.
It's only for that key, right? Not all the requests will be related to.
No. For that particular shard. So suppose this node 3 has 3 other shards. For shard 0, the requests will no longer be given to this node. And suppose there are some other shards, like 1, 2 or 3 shards, the requests for those shards can be given there. So there you see that Elasticsearch is eventually consistent in the distributed architecture. The other point is that the read request can go to any of the nodes, primary or replica. That means if you have billions of requests per second, if you have more number of replicas, it can be scaled, right?
So node 4 is responsible for the check of node 3 and 2 for their replica.
Yes.
So it constantly monitoring
at the time of writing. At the time of writing, it just sees that whether the acknowledgement has come or not. If it doesn't come, then it updates the master. That right now it is inconsistent. For the next read, it will again wait for the acknowledgement and update the master. The master maintains the list that what are the replica nodes of this particular primary node. So whenever master sends a request for a write, it also sends the list of the nodes which it has to write again as replicas. In case of, like if you, right. Yeah. For asynchronous calls, the master will not remain. Master will not retain any list of this because asynchronous call doesn't have any acknowledgement. So they cannot be in sync. That okay, these are the acknowledgements which I have got. These are the acknowledgements which I have got.
pieces larger than the
So master also consistently keeps in touch with the other nodes also. So it's not that it is only in touch with your primary node. It has all the states of your client node as well as your primary node. Only the write operation works that way. The acknowledgement goes via your primary node. So your master maintains all the node state in the cluster.
So, yes, synchronous code is the flag which is not expecting the response. Has to maintain all the
No. So by asynchronous I mean that these calls are asynchronous. So it is also not expecting any response. So it is not giving any response. So it means send a write request and forget about it. Right? That's what asynchronous is. You just send the operation, whenever the result comes, you just displace that. So you're saying that how do I judge that which node is primary node and which node is the replica node, right? It has its internal algorithms which find out, okay, you can also, first of all, you can also define that this is the machine and you can allocate all my primary nodes to this because this has the highest number of infrastructure for that I have got. And the other way, it also configures its node according to your machine configuration. It has inbuilt also, you can verify also, you can change also. No, it's not consensus model. It's based on configuration. You have synchronous replication by default. You can make it async if you want. The data flows from primary node to replica nodes. It's the responsibility of primary node to get all the acknowledgement from the data nodes and send it back to the master. Elasticsearch is an eventual consistent system. And because your reads can be done on replicas also as well as primary also, it is highly available. Right? Now before that, let's go to terminal. You're able to see, right? Okay. So we'll see the Elasticsearch YAML. So whenever you install Elasticsearch, there is a configuration path given, and there you can see the Elasticsearch YAML. Here, if I open Elasticsearch YAML, it has all the configurations which you want. You can define all your configurations here, whether this node is a data node or client node, or whether how many. So it also serves a concept of bulk request, which we see. You can tell the size of your data here. You can also name your cluster here, and it has all bunch of configurations which you need is to be fed here. So here, if you see, the name of my cluster is Elasticsearch local. Now suppose I have some other laptop, a new machine. I install Elasticsearch there. I'll start Elasticsearch there. I'll name the cluster as Elasticsearch local. And if they both are on same network, they both will join the same cluster. They will form the same cluster. Your 5 replicas will be created here. Your 5 shards will be created there. Primary shards, replica shards, right?
You don't have to really save the which IP address.
No, you don't have to do anything. They'll figure it out. If they are on the same network, they are joining the same cluster. You don't have to do anything. They will join to same cluster. So by default, your all nodes will work on TCP. So it already exposes 2 nodes, 9200 for your HTTP, on which your REST APIs will work, and 9300 for your TCP, on which your 2 nodes will work. Yeah. How many? Yeah, you have. So it's an open source, right? So there are so many tools which you can use. So right now I have this head plugin. So here, if you see, it tells you that this is the name of my cluster. This is the number of nodes I am having. This is the name of my node, which is my current node. It has primary shards. So all the green shards are the primary shards. It has also created some replica shards, but they are unassigned because I don't have any other node connected, right? So your replica shards cannot be on the same machine, right? These are the indexes which I have currently in my Elasticsearch. The HTTP REST API is connected on 9200 port, and by default it is HTTP. So this is one of the plugin which is there. You can have a bunch of other plugins which exposes all the REST APIs which you need to create a new UI yourself also.
Is it possible to add data after the cluster is up and running?
To add?
To add a data.
Yeah. Yes. You can add a data node, you can add a new master node. You can change the configuration that how many masters I need for the node. There's nothing that the cluster is up, you can't do. As far as
How do you decide is the number seen on this source?
Yeah. So it has that intelligence in itself. Now suppose you have a new data node and your cluster is already having 5 shards. Now you create a new index, you change the number of shards to 6, your new shard will be created in your new node because it will see that I have a machine which is empty and doesn't have any shards there. So you just change your number. So your 5 shards are already working on some other nodes, right? So your data will be saving there. If you change the number of shards now I want new shards because I have a new machine, it will automatically go to that machine. But you have to change the settings there. It will maintain your sync and replicas all by itself if the new node is there. For that you don't have to do anything. But to reach to it, to give it a new desired state, then you have to add a configuration there. So these are the indexes. You can see the number of documents, the size of the index. This is a UI where you can see the data, sort the data normally, and this is the JSON structure. So all your records are in the form of JSON. If you see here, this is the name of your index. I'm sure that I can. So this is the name of your index, your type. We'll talk about types. It will be deprecated, I think, in next version. Then you have ID. This is the version it maintains for your update conflict resolution. Then this is your actual data. So this is my actual data. These are the key value pairs which I have provided. Right? And if you are new to Elasticsearch, it also gives you a nice API to call search results or to create new queries. It will give you the bool queries or whatever queries it supports. You can choose your query, create here, and search for it. And if you are already using Elasticsearch and you prefer JSON, you can write your JSON here, send it to press post, and then you can get your data here. So this is one of the UI plugin which is there. There are a bunch of other plugins which you can use. And usually you would use mostly Postman or any REST client because all these APIs are exposed and you can do the data there. Let's go back. Now, this is a library on top of which the Elasticsearch is. So this is the very heart of Elasticsearch, by which it is actually able to search in your data. How your data is segregated and saved and how it is searched is done in Lucene. Lucene is also open source under Apache and it is also written in Java. So data structure which Lucene uses for indexing is called inverted index. You will, whenever you are going to read about Elasticsearch or do anything about Elasticsearch, you will always come across 2 indexes. Normally when they talk about index, it's the Elasticsearch index which we talked about, which can span to multiple nodes. Then there is new thing called inverted index, also called Lucene index. So your shard actually saves this data, this index. So your Elasticsearch index as a shard, and your shard is actually your inverted index, Lucene index. Right? This index is nothing but the index which you find in the back of your textbooks. Right? Where you have a word and page number, that this is the word, it is present on this page number, this line number. If you have read some good books, it is always there. And, okay. So we'll see how this inverted index is created. Suppose I have these 3 documents, right? I will segregate these 3 documents based on suppose spaces. I'll get these terms, right? So if you see, it has removed the word the on. So it has removed those stop words because you will not search on the and on, right? So this analyzer will take care. We'll talk about analyzer later. So your nouns are now retained and the position of that noun is stored with the document. So here, if you see, blue is contained in first document and third document, on third position and second position. This is how the entire index is made. This is what your Lucene index or shard is going to say. Actually, this is okay. Now, suppose your search query comes in for this particular key. It will go to this index. So it will go to the node, it will go to the cluster, it will go to the node, it will go to your shard. And your shard will see, okay, I have these terms, I have these two terms, blue and sky, which I have to look for. It will see that, okay, I have found two of the terms which are matching and they both are contained in third document, right? So this is the most relevant document for me. So it is going to return you all the documents which contain the word blue, which contain the word sky, but what ranking it's going to give is based on the relevance. And relevance is decided how many words of your query are present in your documents and what the frequencies of those documents. You can change these algorithms. You can also optimize these algorithms, provide boosting, provide some scoring. All this can be configured at the query time also, at the indexing time also. Right? Sometimes you want that if I search and this particular query comes in this particular field, put the document ahead because it is more important to me. This can all be done with a very small tweaks in the APIs. Right? So your most relevant document is 3. All the documents which contain the word blue and sky, all those documents will be returned. So this is how internally your Elasticsearch will segregate your documents and return your documents. This is how it searches. Keywords means? Okay, you're saying the stop words. So it has bunch of analyzers which tells you for different languages what are the keywords. So earlier it used to use the snowball analyzer which contained a list of, not the snowball analyzer, there is some other analyzer which used to contain a dictionary. Okay, these are the stop words in this particular language and these have to be removed. In the same way, now there is one more thing, right? Now suppose you want to search on best and blue and bright also, but you also want to search on, you want to give autocomplete. You also want to search on BLU, right? You want to also search on BL, right? So this is not saved in this index, right? It is saving the entire word. So how will it know that there is no other smaller part here, right? So for that, you will need, I have a slide for that. Okay. So we will now see how these words are segregated, okay? You provide your input, it is in the form of string, it will go to a character filter, it will strip out some unwanted characters like HTML tags or something like that. And then it will give you a cleaner string. It will go via tokenizer. Here your tokenizer will actually segregate your string into different tokens. Like we had this blue sky thing. So it will change, segregate into tokens of blue and sky, space separated or some special characters separated. There are a bunch of tokenizers which are available there. You can go through the documentation and see what analyzer suits your particular case, right? Maybe you need the hyphens. Maybe some other guy doesn't need the hyphens and wants to be separated. And then on top of it, we have token filters. Now suppose you have these small tokens, you apply some filters on top of it to do further processing. Like you want to lower case those. You want to stem those words. So here you will stem the word blue and sky if you want. So we have an n-gram analyzer, edge n-gram analyzer in Elasticsearch. If you will search, you will get a bunch of documentation. There you can now your inverted index will store the word B, BL, BLU and BLUE and then return the results.
And this conversation has to be done
at the time of indexing. This has to be done at the time of indexing. Because if you have already done indexing, you have already created Lucene index, it only contains the blue word, you can't do anything much. Right? And then you have the final output, which is placed in your Lucene index. Right?
So this will create a lot of duplication. You have 1 GB of data.
Yeah. This data is not stored in the form of text, it's stored in the form of binary. So it will reuse so if there is blue word containing 10,000 times, it is placed at one place and you have other references to that. You have to still segregate it. Yes, yes, it's a heavy operation.
For 1 GB of data, how much?
How much?
If you, let's say you have 1 GB of block,
Yeah.
how much storage space?
So if you have 1 GB of block, then how much place will the Lucene index will take?
1 GB of blocks.
Blocks you have. Okay, so you're saying your one document is of 1 GB.
No, no, you have 1 GB of block statements.
Okay, log statements. Then how much of data you are saying that this is going to take because it is kind of repeating the data.
It's repeating also. Every word,
Yeah.
each and every word.
Yeah. I think what you are thinking is that it will actually, what you are thinking is it is actually saving the B word and BL word and BLU word. Like but if you go in if you see into the data of Lucene, like there is a folder in Elasticsearch which actually stores the data in, and if you open that file, they are pretty small. So they don't have the data in form of in whatever your form. So it will strip out all the unnecessary things out there. So usually when you see the Lucene indexes, they are much smaller than your actual data.
I want to add one more thing here. Actually, that if you have question like we have like a use index, if we are repeating what kind of words, I think you want to see something. So actually, we use data compression algorithm here. So once if you generally have only 205 characters or 256, sorry. So we have a combination of those, and we use compression algorithm to store data. So it will not like take us so much memory. We actually will take a hardly.
Okay, so I think that is enough about Lucene. This time we are used for Elasticsearch. Okay, so back to Elasticsearch. This is what we read: cluster, node, index. We did not see time. So earlier, what used to happen? Your different indexes further used to have some different types. So you can say your one type of document in one type, another type of documents in another type, but it was deprecated. Now you will only have one type in your one index. So earlier it used to serve this purpose that suppose it is although schema-less, but usually you have data which has a similar schema. So you can create a type of that particular list of documents and the other type of other list of documents. But then they deprecated it for some reason which we are not going to discuss. But in the coming times, they are going to deprecate types also because it no longer serves any purpose, right? So we see that the actual data is stored in the form of document, which is a JSON. Document containing your fields, and then you have actual Lucene indexes, which are called shards, and then you have replicas called shards, right? Now, what happens when your query comes to different nodes, right? So you saw what happens when your insert query comes to your primary and replica nodes, something like that, right? Now we will see that what happens when you have three different nodes, your read request is coming, how the document list is going to get out, right? So here what will happen, this is your coordinating node, it will send the request to your shards. These can be either replica shards or primary shard, but one of them, right? So it will generate the list of documents from Lucene index which are most relevant to this. By default, if you don't define the size, it takes 10. So it is going to create a priority queue of those documents. By priority, I mean the relevance. So the most relevant documents will be having the highest priority. And if you provide the size, then it will generate a queue of your that size, right? So you will have three priority queues here. These will be returned to your coordinating node, and then your coordinating node will generate a new queue because your actual size is 10, right? Not 30, which these three nodes will return. So it will then merge these three priority queues, create a new priority queue, and return to the user. So this is how your read request will work inside Elasticsearch.
It could be possible that one and shard state can return the same result.
If you have duplicated data, yes. But here it will be only return one time hit because it will ignore the other one. If you have stored duplicated data here, then yes. I did not understand. So you are saying you have different IDs or you have same ID because it maintains ID for the documents.
Different
Different IDs, so it doesn't matter to Elasticsearch, right? For Elasticsearch, it's like two different documents which are having almost similar data. It will return both of these documents here. You will get the duplicate.
There is an algorithm that may prefer which priority.
No, so see what will happen. Your algorithm will define, okay, these are the two documents. These two documents suppose as highest priority, right? Because the terms which you are containing are there in these two documents. For Elasticsearch, these are two different documents. It will return those two documents as top two results, although they are same.
All these three charts are the same.
These three charts could be or could not be. If they are on different nodes also, then your coordinating node will send request to all the three nodes. If they are on same, it will be sent to all the charts of the same. Yeah.
So merging of data is done by the coordinating node.
The merging of data is done by the coordinating node. Is it visible now? So here you have the list, priority list. It gets all the relevant result from Lucene index, sends it back to the coordinating node, creates a new queue, and then returns. Cool?
One question. So, when you show that you have two indexes in your global setup,
I have 4 indexes, yes.
if I send a search feature, it will do search that
You can-
in all the indexes, or you have to specify which index is searching?
You can specify that. You can specify whether I want to search on one particular index or all the indexes.
If I specify index, then want it to still will send that request to all the other
To all the shards which contain that index.
only to-
Yes, not the other indexes. No. Cool. So we are majorly done with the down part. You know how the distributed architecture of Elasticsearch works, how it helps with your fail-safe scenarios, how your read request works, how your write request works, and basically this is what internally Elasticsearch does. It has Lucene index where it stores the actual data, right? We'll now go to the smaller part here, the API part, right? Which you are going to, by the way, use most than what you read here. So Elasticsearch exposes REST APIs, which means you are going to have HTTP call, get, put, post, all those methods. So to create an index, you will just put a put call, your host name, your port, and your index name. That's it. It will be done. And the shards are created on the background. You don't have to deal with those. Then, so usually what happens, your documents are schema-less, right? You can have your one document containing 2 fields which are strings, and you can have some other document which doesn't contain any string, it has all the numbers and arrays and everything, right? So when you are saving your first document to Elasticsearch, suppose you don't have any mapping. Mapping is basically schema of your documents which you are going to save in the Elasticsearch. So when you first save your first document into Elasticsearch, it will dynamically generate a mapping based on the data which you have provided. Now suppose you have provided field 1 as a string, it will generate a mapping in itself and says that field 1 will always be a string because it has to provide some operations on that field. For number, it will have some different operations. You can perform aggregations on number which are of different set. So at the time of your first document, it will create some dynamic schema and your second document will then follow that schema. Sometimes it could happen that your first document is a date, but your second document is a string. It will try to merge those two things if it is possible, that the date may override, string may override date, but sometimes it can result in error if this document cannot be done because mapping is already there. So you might get into conflicts that I can't merge these two fields because they belong to different data, but mostly you will be covered. It will dynamically merge those two areas and find out the data type which is best suited for both of your documents, right? And to be on safer side, you will always declare your own mapping. So this is the REST API for your mapping. This is the mapping keyword which you have to provide. This is the name of the mapping which you have to provide. The index name is defined in the URL, and then this is the mapping of your fields. You can define the type. You can also define the analyzer. Suppose you don't want to, suppose you are saving the word New York, right? You don't want to save it separately. because you want to complete, you want to save it complete. You specify some other kind of analyzer. This is not a white space analyzer. Cool. Then we have create document. You have created the index. You have created a mapping for something. Now it is time to save your first document. That's it. You just have to name, give it an ID, and save the document. Even if you don't give an ID, it will generate an ID on itself because it has to uniquely identify those documents. Here you can give as many repeated documents as you want. It will not do it. Because for it, you are saving your different data. It could repeat. Because in logs, you can have some similar kind of data, only the data differences are there. That's it. Yeah. Yes, yes. You can go N level D. Doesn't really matter. So obviously you're not going to save your documents in a single API. You will always have some bulk APIs. So it also supports a bulk API. Here you can specify the keyword bulk, your index name, your update key, and this is your actual document. So this is the syntax it supports for your bulk. You can generate a migration script which outputs this thing and then put a bulk API on top of it. Now the size of the bulk API can go to some GBs, it doesn't matter. It is constant, it will save your data in one shot. The only thing which is which could hinder is the performance, because internally what bulk API is parallel single API. So it is going to generate some parallel threads. If you have a high-speed system, it can be done very quickly. Okay. Search API, you have saved your data, you have bulk uploaded your data, now you want to search your data. There is a keyword called _search. So all the keyword APIs, right, like search, update, bulk, they all start with underscore in case of Elasticsearch, right? And here you can specify the query string. This is the keyword it needs. Then here can be different types of queries you want. It could be a should query, must query, and or not, something like that. Some different kind of query, whatever query you want, and you can nest the queries as much as you want. So you can create a complex query, a complex join which you use to create in your relational database. Create a complex query here and then send it there. Okay. Then there is bool query, which is a special kind of search like and or search. Here they called it, so and is called a must, not and is called a must not, and should is called or. So you can create bool APIs here and then get the result. These can go to N level. This JSON can go to N level. There is no, there might be some level, like very high level, that is restricted. Okay, you cannot go this deep, but it's usually more than enough which you are going to need in your projects. Cool. We will see some of the queries if you're able to see the okay. So you saw the Elasticsearch head plugin here, right? So here you see it exposes your Elasticsearch, your cluster health is yellow because you don't have any replica nodes. Here in the same way, you have APIs, health API which is exposed. And you can create your own UI on top of it and do whatever you want. It exposes this cat API, and on this API, you can also see whatever data you need to know, right? So it also exposes your node API and it gives you what your node is, what your node status is right now. It gives a unique ID to your node. This is the name of your Elasticsearch. This is the name of my node. This is the host. This is the IP address. So whatever data is stored on my node, how many search APIs have I done? How many refresh cycles have I gone through? How many flush cycles have I gone through? All data is there, right? Then you have your mapping API. So I have saved my first document. So my first document, so basically I have saved this particular CSV. Okay, if you can see the CSV. Plus it. So if you see this CSV, I have a bunch of Amazon reviews. Here you have product, the category of that product, the review, what review it got, what rating it got. It has about 40 to 45,000 of documents, I think. These data I have stored in my Elasticsearch index. Okay, and this is the mapping it has generated by default. So I saved my first document and it generated this mapping. So if you see this mapping, this is the field it has, generated by default. This is the field it has generated by default. These are the fields which is used internally. So timestamp it uses, sometimes you need retainment, right? So your index is like 5 years old. So Elasticsearch might automatically delete that. There is a threshold which it provides. If it's older than that, the timestamp is older than that, it will eliminate that. And version is for updates. Now suppose you are updating your document, there are two parallel requests. So versioning is maintained. And this is the key which maintains it. Then these are the actual fields which I have saved, right? Now you see that the first brand is text. These are all the strings which I have saved. And we'll talk about this thing when we'll go to aggregation. Then what is this? Okay, what is keywords? Okay. Now earlier in Elasticsearch, we used to have this API in which you used to search and you used to say Q is equal to phone. So your Q is your query parameter. It will search in the entire index and bring out all the documents which are there for containing the word phone. So there are 748. This is now deprecated. This is not deprecated, this is already supported, but a better API for this is multi-match. So here you can specify your fields, what all fields I want to search in. If you want to search in all the fields, you don't give any of the fields. It will search in all the fields. And if you want to search in particular fields, you specify the particular fields here and it will only search in those documents and return. Okay. Now, this is how the response of Elasticsearch looks like. Okay. All your Elasticsearch APIs are going to respond like this. It will take how many time it took, some bunch of the metadata it is going to share with you. And this is the data which you are basically concerned about. Hits is the JSON which contains your actual results. It contains how many number of documents are returned, the count of those documents, the maximum score of the highest document, that means the highest score of the document which is returned, and then the documents themselves. They are sorted on the basis of relevance, like based on the score. Yes.
What's the time?
What's the
Time rate?
time? Acha, tiebreaker. Okay. So suppose your two documents are having same score, and I want to tie break on those things. So you can provide a tiebreaker here. It's usually a value from 0 to 1. The lesser it is, the more relevant document you get. Cool. Now, if I open these documents, if you see here, I'll search by name. Okay. Yeah. So if you see here, I have searched for Amazon Kindle, right? And it has returned me all the documents which contain the word either Amazon or Kindle, right? And in the name, the first document which I have received contains all new Kindle e-recorder, right? Now in my Excel sheet, I know there is one document which contains in the name Amazon Kindle, and I am more interested in that document, and I want that document to come on top. What I'll do is, I'll say, if the data is found in this field, just boost it by 2. So if your data is found in this field, then the score of that data will be multiplied by 2. The field score of the data, not the actual score. Cool. Now if I send this document, the highest score which I receive is 7.0 because I have increased the score. And here now, the first document which I have received contains the word Amazon. So you can give scoring to your number of fields. You can give scoring to your 2 fields also, whatever you want. You can give scoring in the form of 0.2, 0.3 also. So this is how you're going to optimize your query. Some fields might be more important to you than the other fields, right? So this is how you're going to do it. Just simple query can make a drastic difference to your query results.
So sometimes you see that some databases support search will also provide synonyms.
Synonyms, yes.
So the
Yes, Elasticsearch has a concept of similar documents, where there you can specify that my first document is much more similar to this type of document. It also supports some other relevance also, like suppose you are going to see the word quick, right? It will return you all the words which has quicker also, and it knows that fast is also there. So it has this.
although fast is not present in the database, it will still know that it is a synonym. And it will
Yes, yes, yes. So you will specify. So this all depends upon what kind of analyzer you are using, right? So if you have an intelligent analyzer, it will give you it will produce an intelligent Lucene index, and based on this query will be presented. So the more, so whenever you are going to use the Elasticsearch, just see what is your use case. See whether what kind of analyzer is available in the market. Most of the times, whatever your use cases are, some analyzers will be able to solve that, right? Yeah. So this is how you're going to search. Okay. We'll now go to aggregations. I think so. If there is nothing else left. Yeah, aggregations. So you have searched your documents. Now you need aggregations on top of it. You need to group your data. You need to generate some aggregated results like average it out, sum it out, or something like that. So this is Amazon review system. Suppose I need to, whenever my data is returned, I want to know, so this particular query has resulted how many categories of data. So whether they come in phone category, whether they come in Kindle category, what is the category of it. I want to get all the data which comes under 4 to 5 rating, right? So these are some of the aggregations operations which you can perform. Elasticsearch obviously support aggregations, and there are 4 types of aggregation which it is going to support. One is matrix aggregation. Matrix aggregation is your basically numeric aggregations. It contains some non-numeric functions also. It can result into single value or multiple value. Your average, sum, all comes under matrix aggregation. The other one is buckets aggregation. Buckets aggregation is nothing but grouping. Now suppose you have a list of, suppose in your Amazon cart, suppose you have a list of products, and your products can be categorized into different kinds of categories. So you have toys, you have makeup, you have whatever other people need video games, which I don't play. So something like that. And then there is metrics. Metrics is somewhat similar to metric also, but it contains some hardcore formula-based mathematical functions. So your mean, your variance, your standard deviation comes under metrics. This is automatically supported in there. You just have to say, I want a mean of this particular documents, this particular query, and you're done. It will return you the results. Then there is pipeline aggregation. So your pipeline aggregation means that your one aggregation is going to be input of your other aggregation. So there is difference between pipeline aggregation and nested aggregations, right? Now suppose you're saying I need documents and I need one more bunch of function which I want to perform on it. So your first function will act on your list of documents, right? And then that bucket list of documents will perform the another function on that particular list of documents, right? This is called nesting. When your one aggregation results in documents and your other aggregation works on that set of documents. The pipeline means when your one aggregation results into the aggregation, the aggregated result, the next aggregation will work on the aggregation. So, okay. So what I mean is, like, for example, you are returning sum, right? Sum of some documents, SUM sum. And those sum, and your next pipeline aggregation will work on the sum, not the documents which are part of that sum. And your nesting means that will work on the documents which are part of that sum. Cool. So nesting is supported here. You can go n level deep, perform n level of nesting here, and then there is pipeline aggregation also, right? So this is the syntax of aggregation API. You have a query, you have a query type, you have a field. This is basically the search API, and then on below, after that you have to use this keyword aggregations or ads, whatever you need, and then you have to name your aggregation, whatever you want to give the name. This is the keyword which you have to give for sure. This is whatever you want to give, and then you can define the type of aggregation that you want. You want sum, you want bucket, you want mean, you want variance, you want standard deviation, you want anything you like. You can integrate it, you can create differential aggregation, anything you want, right? And this is the field on basis of which you want to do the aggregation. Now here will come the mapping. Here, if you see, we had this mapping API, right? And in the mapping API, if you see the categories, if you see in the categories, it says that it has type text, which means it is a string. It has also saved one more data type called keyword. So this keyword is used in aggregation. Okay. So this keyword is used in aggregation basically. By aggregation, it means now if I have some field in the, so if you see in JSON, in your categories, if you will create a Lucene index here, your data will be segregated as electronics, iPad, tablets, different form, right? And that is how your text analyzer is going to analyze it. But when you are aggregating on top of it, you don't want results like electronics separate and iPad separate, because in the category there is complete line, right? So this is the keyword analyzer which you are going to use. It will not separate the entire result. So I have a demo for this. I think we are about to run out of time. If I can like get 5 more minutes. Yeah. So if you see here, I have an aggregation query. Yeah, we'll do this. So this is how my aggregation query looks like. The top keyword is search only. You can search on any name, anything you want. And then this is the block which we are interested in. It has categories, and in the field you have categories.keyword. That means I want to search on the keyword part, not on the categories part, because I want the entire string as one of the groups, right? And then here is the name of my aggregation, and here is the field on which I have to do. So what this aggregation is going to do, it is going to group your documents based on category, and then again group and there is nesting again, you will again group your documents based on your ratings, right? Now if I send this, you don't get any documents because I have specified size 0, which means I am only interested in aggregation and not the documents. If I remove this, you will get documents also, right? Hits. You have all the documents. But I am just interested in aggregation. So aggregation is also there. So if you see in aggregation here, this is my first aggregation. It contains buckets. This is the first key. This is the second key. This is the document count of this bucket. So there are 10,000 documents which belong to this category. There are 2,000 documents which belong to this category. And among these documents, these are the number of documents which belong to 4 to 5 ratings, right? So this, like this, you can go any level deep and you can perform bunch of other metric operations there. So like this is by default, metric operations are available. So this is the count of the reviews. This is the minimum review which I'm getting. This is the maximum. This is the average review which I'm getting. Some right now I'm not interested in. But these are the things which you by default get. And this is the API which is used to do this. So if you see here, I just have to specify the field name and say I need some extended stats. And it did, and it gave me all the stats which I need. Right? Okay. So there is one more thing in Elasticsearch. So you search, right now you only search in the text part, right? So we can also search in the geolocations also. I have some API for that. Now in your geo mapping, your mapping looks like this. So I have an index called my locations. I have asked for the mappings of my location, and what these mappings are doing, it is returning me properties, which is saying that I have two fields. One is name, one is pin. So I have in my locations a list of restaurants. The name contains the name of the restaurant and the pin contains the latitude and longitude of that restaurant. Basically the geo point for that restaurant. And the type for this is geo point. Okay. Now, let's do one thing. I think you people might be hungry now. So I'm going to go to Google Maps. I'm going to search. So I have fed about 25 top 25 restaurants of Pune in my index. I'll go to ThoughtWorks. I'll copy the longitude and latitude of the location of ThoughtWorks in my search query. What have I got? Okay, this is the longitude which I am interested in. This is the latitude which I am interested in. It's the same only. I searched for it to make sure that it works. And then when you send this, you get 4 restaurants which are right now in 3 kilometers of your radius from where you can order from, or go get them. I don't have to do anything for it. I just save the document with the name and longitude, latitude, nothing else I do. And this is the query. This is the simple query which you have to type. That's it. You can increase your distance here, and I will get bunch of more restaurants. So now I got total. How many restaurants I got? I got 8 restaurants now. Cool. So only thing which, so this is the document which I saved here. Create job. That's it. I saved the name of the document and I saved the location of the document, and it did the searching for you. The same way it supports the geo shape search also. Now this is my point and I want the area of this point. In the same way you can say not just point, I have this particular shape and I want to search in this particular shape. So this can also be achieved. I know there is some app which shows your live racing car instances based on Elasticsearch. So you can do a bunch of cool stuff with the geo mappings also, right? And now, so there is one more thing where you can search on. So you searched on text, you searched on geolocations, you searched on numbers, you aggregated on numbers. Now suppose I have some attachments, right? Now there is one more index here. If you see, I had one more index. So this is the health index. Okay. Yeah. So there is one more index called candidates. It has about 4 documents. What this has, it has a mapping which contains the name of the person and the resume of that person, right? Just the name and the resume. Now suppose if I want to also search in the resume also, the attachment also, what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to query this attachment and I'm getting 3 results which has Java in the resume. What you have to do was just convert your PDF or Word or Excel or whatever into base encoded form, save it in Elasticsearch, it will also search in the document. Cool, you don't have to do anything for that. I just created one document like this. I added a resume, I added a name, I converted this resume to base 64, saved it, and then searching was possible here. So I got 3 results in which the name, the resume contains your Java word, but your name is plain text. So you can search in here.
Let's say we have blogs and Word documents or Excel files.
Yeah.
So why not just convert everything into a 64 and pull and then how is that different from this?
I'm not getting what you're saying. So suppose you have some Word documents and some PDFs and you convert it into base64 and you feed it into Elasticsearch and then search.
When you write, you said you needed a JSON, right?
I needed a JSON, yes.
The API needs a JSON.
The
There
API.
is a process of converting from the Word document into a JSON, which is a process. I mean, I need to understand the data.
Yeah.
Instead, why can't everybody just come
Yeah.
the entire document?
Yeah, because your Word document, PDF documents is also containing bunch of metadata, which it doesn't need. And I don't want to pollute my document with that metadata. So what base64 does is it also cleans your data while encoding. So you have a lot of extra space, a lot of line limits, lot of other things which your PDF and Word document needs to be there. If you just convert it into text, It will not result into refined text. So you just convert your base document into base64. It will concise that data, and then you can save that data here. It will also reduce the size of the data.
Also, I think it will allow you to do queries on if you have been created, if they want to say emailing them with this.
Which won't be possible in document.
So, if we have some binary content,
You can do that. Yes, you can do that. Yes, you can convert your binary into base64 and then search on top. Okay, you don't want to search on binary. Yes, for sure. Now suppose you have like 10-15 fields in your document and you only want to search on 2-3 fields, right? So you can at the time of indexing you can give that turn off searching or turn off indexing on these fields. Then those fields will not be present in UCIN index.
it's an image. There are some characters. It's a value, but it's not the text.
Yeah.
Which Elasticsearch will create index.
You can, yeah, if you don't specify that you don't want it index, it will try to create index for it. But you, at the time of indexing, you can specify, I don't want this field to be indexed. And it will not index those fields. Cool. I think we are done here. Almost, yes. So you had difference between, okay, this is one slide which is missing. So this is the last slide which is there. This is Elasticsearch versus Solr. Solr is also Apache library which is based on Lucene. It has bunch of similarities with Elasticsearch. These are the differences which are there, which might help you further to decide between these two things. Usually for your logging, the support is more on Elasticsearch than on Solr, but for your searching operations, both of them are very useful. The only difference which I think is there, all the node handling operation, all the distributed part, Elasticsearch handle it itself, and coordination between the node it handles. But for Solr, you need Zookeeper to do those things. So this is an Elasticsearch session. Obviously, I'm going to give weightage to Elasticsearch, but it depends upon your use cases also. Cool? Then I'm done. Thank you.